One of my biggest bestseller I sold million copies is 17 Things to Do in Your 20s. So in that book, I said, make the biggest failure in your 20s, that in your 70s, that bring you a smile.
How does one find their life purpose?
Unless you want it.
Unless you want it.
Unless you want it badly, it won't be in your hands.
What's the best advice have you ever received?
The best advice is
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Learning Podcast. And if you aren't sure, it's a Singaporean podcast dedicated to learning something new from every single guest on this show. And today I'm extremely honored to have a best-selling author. He has sold over 8 million books. He has wrote over 50 or if not, I think over 100 books as well. So I think when it comes to being a writer, right, one thing I think about writing is that it can really change lives. And obviously this person has done that. And welcoming Mr. Ken Honda. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, JJ, for inviting me. I'm so excited as you are.
Yeah, and thanks so much, Chloe, for setting this up as well. I'm really indebted to you in making these kind of great conversations happen.
Thank you so much for having this beautiful space. And because of that, we have Ken to be here.
Got it. I think there's really two things I'd love to learn from you in this podcast, right? I think one is the concept of writing. Like what I said, writing can change people's lives. You can, whether it's writing that resume, writing that text message to the client, or even selling, right? Or even improving people's lives. Writing is a way to really share and impact people's lives. And you have done that obviously in millions of books, which I think is quite crazy. And I would love to have a behind the scenes look when it comes to you being a writer itself, because I'm sure there are a lot of challenges, obstacles that you have along the way. And perhaps there's a thing or two that I can learn about writing and hopefully encourage others to do the same as well. And I think that before this podcast, it was actually a podcast session with Chloe, and you talked about leaving a legacy of sorts for your daughter. And obviously you have done that, right? And perhaps maybe I have an agenda on this podcast is to encourage others to leave their legacies as well, because I think that every single one of us humans, right, have a unique perspective as well. Obviously, you are in a blessed position to have talked to thousands of people in terms of accumulating all these insights into a great book like this. And on this note, Mr. Ken Honda is releasing a new book, True Wealth, 9 Lessons from a Grandfather on Happiness and Abundance. It is his second English book. You'll be launching 14th May. We'll leave links in the video description. And of course, the second thing I would love to talk to him about is this new book, right? It is a novel and it's not a conventional non-fiction book. And I think there's really a lot of things that we want to extract and learn from you as well. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm all yours. You can ask me any questions.
Yeah, going all the way back to your starting journey as a writer, right? I know in Happy Money, you did share that you first started your journey writing like a 20-page article and giving out to your friends and printing out many of those articles to give out to people, right? Could you bring us back to those days when you made that decision? You're sitting in front of the laptop. What was going through your mind?
So it's 22 years ago. So it feels like a long time ago. I was a retired happy father who's just taking care of our baby. So we did nothing but just child raising. So I had all the time in the world. So I sat down while my daughter was having a nap. I just wrote down a few pages of happiness and money, which my friends asked me to write. So I said, I'm not a writer. But he said, you can write something just if it's a few pages. And I said, okay, if it's only 2 pages, I can write. And I started writing, and 2 pages is not enough. So he went to 4 pages and 8 pages. I was surprised. I ended up writing 26 pages of a small booklet. And then I copied it to and started giving away to my friends. And one day I was complaining that I got sore hands by just stapling like 10 or 20. So he asked me, why don't you hire a printer? And I'd say, okay, it's a good idea. So at the time there was something called a phone book. You know, there's a yellow thing, and then it's a physical phone book and the piece section printer. So I asked the guy to come to my office, and then I asked him, can you print these copies for 200? And he said, no, we do 1,000 minimum. I don't need 1,000 copies. But he said, that's a minimum. Okay. So I was trying to sign the contract. He changed my life because he said, actually, sir, can you take a look at the sheet? He had another sheet of quote from his bag. And he says 3,000 copies. So if you print 1,000, the cost is like $8 or so. And then if you print 3,000, the cost is like $2 or something. Like, wow, you can save a lot of money. And I signed a contract for 3,000.
Oh, not 1,000, 3,000.
Yeah, but he didn't tell me how many boxes. Yeah, I just calculated the cost. And then 2 weeks later, 2 trucks came in front of my apartment, and then I thought new neighbor is moving in, and it's actually my books, my booklets, and wow, like so many. And my wife and my daughter, I think probably they went somewhere, and they were coming back in 2 hours. So I have to come up with nice excuse, but I couldn't. So I said to my wife, "I'm so sorry because I made a mistake. I have so many boxes in my house." And then she was not smiling, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to get rid of these boxes in 6 months." And she said, "Either I'll give you 3 months, either box is out or you out." And then I try to call up my friends. You said, JJ, you said my booklets are good. Can I send you 100? And then can I send you 50? Chloe, you said you love my writing. So I started giving away 20, 50, 100. And by the time 2 weeks later, I just gave away everything. And then the interesting thing happened. Those days I got a fax machine, and then I got lots of fax papers requesting more copies, because I said at the end of the booklet, I'll give it 1 copy to everybody. So that's 22 years ago. And then I printed another 3,000. This time I hired a storage unit, and then another 5,000, another 3,000. And by the time I gave away 100,000 copies, a publisher called me, and then they wanted to do a book with me. But I said no, because I wrote everything in the booklet. I cannot think of anything. But the editor said, why don't you sit in front of your computer? Something may come out. I said, I don't know. But I sat down in front of my computer. A lot came out. And then by the time I was finishing 1 book, I already had the book ideas for the 2nd book and the 3rd book. And since then, I have published more than 200 physical books.
That's crazy. If I can go back a little bit, right? I think one of your superpowers, right, it's amassing feedback from friends. Like your friend was the one that told you, why not just write a few pages? You can write, right?
Yes.
That's a superpower, right? How are those conversations like? Because I would say that perhaps you're even indebted to your friends for changing your life as a best-selling author, right? How is that interaction like with your friends? Because I feel like you're so good at taking in data.
Right. So I was talking about the intuition before, my intuition said, okay, why not? So just say yes to all those intuitions led me to where I am. So I never said no to certain things. Okay, why not? Okay, why not? And then I went with the flow. And then when you are in the flow, you start writing, you start speaking, you start doing more business, you start just doing new things. So by going with the flow, you can do anything.
When it comes to writing, right, it's writer's block true or false? How is writer's block true or false? Because I think there are many articles that say, writer's block, I can't write anything, right? How is that process like for you? Is writing intuitively easy for a person like you? Or it's something, sometimes you face challenges along the way?
I know that all the other authors will hate me, but I have never had any writer's block.
Okay.
Because over the past 20 years, I kept on writing books. The reason is that I made my life in a way that I don't get bored. So I just prepare my schedule. So these are the writing days. And then this is like a speaking days. So I speak to thousands of people. Physical, real events, and also online events. And then I have a retreat center, and there we just have 60 people. And then we do deep emotional work. So, and after that, I go back to writing. So whatever I do, that creates more energy in me. So, and also when I deal with people, I get inspired by just listening to their life stories. So I never run out of stuff that I need to write in my books.
So I think it's beautiful that you have archetyped your lifestyle in a way that there's a never-ending source of inspiration.
Yeah, so like I've been traveling for the past 3 weeks. Started from Helsinki, Finland, and I have met so many interesting people, both very well known and also just person sitting right next to me in a cafe. So I can write so many things about their life.
When it comes to that writing session itself, right, I'm just curious to know the behind the scenes, right? It's a blank page, it's a blank piece. Like, how do you even structure? What's your thought process when it comes to writing everything? Because a book is so much, right? What is that rough outline for you? I'm sure you have learned so much in writing dozens of books. What is that
Right.
rough
I
process?
have
you use?
a structured method that I teach in Japan. I will probably start teaching in English too.
Oh, that's great.
But the most important thing is come up with a theme and come up with chapters. And then when you come up with chapters, just come up with a certain concept. So it's almost like once you set that energy, it's going to just come in. So you have to just put your attention to the books and the content. So you channel to the right content space. And then once you're in the flow, boom, it just falls down. So once you just open up a channel to the creativity, and then you cannot stop. It'll be harder to stop.
Interesting. Because I always thought writer's block is a real thing. You have wrote so many books. What have you learned in writing for the past 20 years? I'm sure when you look at, not to say critique your own work 20 years ago, but I'm sure maybe when you read your maybe early books 20 years ago, right? Maybe this could have been phrased better. Like, what was your thought process after writing so many books? Because they say time will teach you so many lessons, right? What have you learned from your own writing over the years?
So I write with my prayers. So every word I write, every sentence I write with prayer. So whenever I write, I just pray at the same time that whoever reads my book will benefit from that. And then this line or the next line will change their life. So I always pray at the same time. So a lot of prayer energy is in my books. So that's why some people carry my books, in their bag all the time, even though they don't read it. It's almost like a lucky charm. So I just believe that everything is energy. So I put all my love and care and generosity in all the books I wrote.
They feel blessed. That's beautiful.
In your events, right, I mean, you have hosted hundreds of webinars, you spoke to thousands of people, right? I think pattern recognition is a real thing where you can really identify the struggles, the challenges that people face, right? Are there any common pitfalls that you see people face where it sort of frustrates you in that sense, and that's why it inspires you to make a book? And what are they?
So, we experience ups and downs in life. And of course, I have experienced, a very hard time too. So when you're having a hard time, it's not going to stay with you forever. So it's going to turn up sometime. So once you have that in your head, I just help people transform their way of looking at life, because the reason they feel stuck is that they're looking down. But instead of looking down, if you start looking up, you see a totally different life. So once you just shift your energy from looking down to looking up, you see a totally different picture. And once I'm successful in assisting people's change their eyesight, the way that they're looking at life, and then they will just find their own answers. So my job is to just change their attention where they're just paying their attention to. And once they're successful at doing that, they'll just find their own answers by themselves. So my job is very simple.
I think because I myself I'm a performance marketer, so we look at data and make the decisions, right? When it comes to writing a new book, right? I think when it comes to writing books, there's a way to write books where you appeal to what people want to read versus what you want to write, right? Because I'm sure besides this book, you have many other books inside you, right? How can you come to a decision of creating a book? Like, what makes a book worth writing?
I always think of exactly what you said. The book I want to write and the book that people want to read. So I don't only write books that I really love. I love writing books that people love to read. that's why I have been a successful writer. So not a single book I have written just only for myself. I write for people who just would benefit from my books. So and also the other one circle I have in my intention is that the world needs right now. So this book, I think the world needs, because we need to change our consciousness into the next level. So if this book will help, it will sell automatically. So that has been my experience.
Got it. On that note, we'll go on to talking more about true wealth, right? I think one thing I realized about this book initially, right, it's not only about money, because I think you're mostly known for happy money. And of course, money is just one aspect of living a great and abundant and happy life, right? What was the inspiration about it in terms of starting this book, in terms of expanding into other aspects of different lives?
Thank you, JJ. You're asking great questions. Thank you. So true wealth means the freedom to do whatever you want, or whoever you want, and wherever you want, whenever you want. It's about the freedom. So it's not about the money. Of course you need money to realize your nice life, but that doesn't mean that you need to have billions of dollars in your bank account. You can manifest money if you have a good friend who can just support you. So you have to know who you are. And you have to know what you want to do. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't know what we want to do. That's a problem. Once we know what we want to do, we can set our focus on what we want to do. But we are so lost in the to-do list of everyday life to make a living. So we have to start shifting our consciousness into whatever we want to do in our life. True calling, ikigai is what we call in Japanese. True meaning of life. So that is what true wealth is all about. And in order to know that, you have to know your destiny as well. So all those things are in this book.
Got it. What do you hope for people to take away from this book?
So this book's theme is synchronicities. So I'm hoping that with a lot of synchronicities that happen to your life, you'll get this book and then start connecting dots in your past. As Steve Jobs said, connecting dots is very important. By connecting dots of what happened in your childhood, what happened to your father, what happened to your grandfather, by connecting all the dots, you realize why you're born in this culture, why you're born this time, why you're born with certain gifts. And then you truly know who you are. And then finally, you can start living your own life.
On that note, you mentioned about Steve Jobs. I'm just curious to know, in terms of, let's say, the big other authors or big business people that have made an impact on your writing as well, right? Could you share if anyone inspired you in that sense, maybe aside from Steve Jobs, what gives you additional inspiration to create these kind of content?
Definitely, Alchemist, is a book that I've been very inspired. And also other great books. If I just start talking, you need 2 hours. So, whatever the books you inspire, you should read it again. So you get inspiration again.
Got it. I think in one of the book descriptions, right, it shares the story about how readers can use the value of failure to propel us forward, right? And I think that for a person like you that has achieved so much, I think in the previous podcast you said that to be a millionaire, you must lose $1 million in a sense to qualify yourself, right? What are the biggest failures did you have in your life, and how do you propel forward after these challenges?
Oh, I'm making a lot of mistakes still. So I think probably if there's any mistake, I should have made more. I think I was too afraid to make mistakes. So in my 20s, I was too afraid to love more, be loved more. I was too afraid to do more because I was too afraid. So if I could go back to my 20s, I'll be a wild person. So that's why I'm just living my 20s in my 50s. I try to risk. I will take a risk and just do things that I never do before. So just doing this in English is also a wild dream for me. And my dream is to do this in Chinese in 5 years. So I'm learning Chinese as well. So I have lots of dreams that I want to achieve in that sense.
On that note, right, you talk about the advice or living as if you're a 20-year-old, right? I just turned 30, so I'm no longer that young anymore, right? But in terms of, let's say, advice you'd give to 20 years old, aside from, let's say, taking big risks, right? What are the other key lessons? I'm sure that there are applicable lessons in this book for people to take in their 20s, right? What are they to you?
Yeah, so one of my biggest bestseller, I sold million copies, is that 17 things to do in your 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in that book, I said, make the biggest failure in your 20s, that in your 70s, that bring you a smile. You know, we are so afraid to make mistakes. So just take a big risk. Even though you're 30, you can still make a big mistake. That means you have to take a risk. You know, we are too afraid to make mistakes. In loving relationship, I have interviewed so many people in their 30s and 40s and 50s, 60s to write my series of books. The things that they regret most is that the certain things they didn't do. Like in their 20s, I wanted to tell the girl I loved her. Well, I wanted to tell the boy that I loved him. But I was too afraid that he or she might say no. So a lot of people didn't say, I love you. And then 20 years later, I actually just happened to my friend. He met his first love of high school, reunion. And after 20 years, he just told his first love, he really cared for her.
Wow.
And he found out that she liked him too. But they're too shy to just tell each other. So, when something like that happens, just when you feel like you love him or love her, just tell that. If you want to start your own business, do that. If you want to go overseas, go. So that's what I would say.
If I may progress onwards, like advice in 20s, right? They say with every decade you learn a few lessons because obviously you have lived for quite a while already, right? Is there any different pieces of advice you would give to someone in their 30s and 20s?
Yes.
And every generation is different, right?
So I sold 2.3 million copies of the series, the 17 things to do in your 30s.
Oh, so you have this
17
series.
things in 40s.
Is it going to be translated?
Yes. I think the book in 20s and 30s are already translated.
Oh,
so
that's great.
We're going to start publishing them. They're a very good book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any key lessons from advice for 30s?
Also 30s. So like in your 20s, you're reckless. But in your 30s, you kind of know where you are. So you sort of get depressed because, you thought you could do anything in your 20s. You start to see the reality. So, okay, I don't think I'll become super wealthy, because I'm just having a hard time making both ends meet. So for the people in their 30s, still dream big. Don't think you're too old. I met a girl who was 23, and she said, "I'm an old woman," because she's surrounded by the girls who's 19 and 20. She feels so old.
We always compare.
Yeah. So if you're 30, you are the youngest. So the tricky part is that you are the youngest for the future. You are the oldest when you look back. So like you just wonder, I feel so old, but actually you are the youngest when you think of the life ahead. So just in your 30s, just dream big.
Got it. I'm excited to really see how that comes out as well. I'm sure it'll give a lot of useful advice to people. One thing I have looked at your writing, right? I know that you love to use juxtapositions, happy money, sad money. And I feel like maybe you can do a little bit of that for true wealth and false wealth, right? What is false wealth and what does it mean to you?
I think false wealth is almost like junk food. Even if you eat, no nutrition. So if it's only money, that doesn't give you the good nutrition in your body. So just money doesn't give you enough nutrition. Because, unless you have a good friend, unless you have a nice relationship, nice family, or life purpose in your life. Just only money doesn't bring you happiness.
Right. I know it's probably a deep question to ask. Like you talked about life purpose, right? How does one find their life purpose?
Unless you want it,
Unless you want it.
unless you want it badly, it won't be in your hands. Because if you're too busy making both ends meet, if you're too busy bringing food on the table, you cannot focus on your life purpose. Because life purpose is outside of doing to bring food on the table. Life purpose brings you the joy and brings you the real meaning of ikigai and the true joy. And then that could be different from what you do now. But if you're too afraid of changing your jobs, you cannot reach there. So you have to take a risk of changing your jobs or losing money or losing your family. You have to just take a big risk in order to truly find who you are.
Got it. Thanks so much for sharing. Moving on to just the last section as well. You've met hundreds and thousands of people, right? Could you just share a memorable story that makes you so happy that you're on this journey of being an international author and speaker?
So one time I met up with a boy who said, I always teach my mom happy money. Like he's like 10. Like, so what do you do? And he said, my mom is trying to buy something. And I asked her, Mom, is that happy money you're using? And she said, no. And then she put her bag into the shelf. And so I think that I knew that's not happy money. So like this 10-year-old boy knows what happy money is. So my joy is to find that people learn from their experiences. And also young people learn this concept. And if all the people learn about happy money and just practice that, I think we'll have a lot less problems financially.
Got it. When it comes to common mistakes when people make about finances, right, in that aspect, right, what simple things do they usually just fall short of?
I think probably we tend to take it for granted. So if we start appreciating money in our life, both receiving money and also spending money, we can live a more joyful life. But we are so stuck in complaining mode, like, oh, I wish I had more money. I don't think this price is right. It's so expensive. And if you start thinking that way, you can lose track of your life very easily.
All right, moving on to some personal questions that we can ask, right? When it comes to relationships, right? Because I'm, not to make it a secret, I'm thinking of proposing probably like next year or so. So in terms of advice, in terms of having a lasting, happy, long-lasting relationship, right? Or in terms of marriage or proposing, right? Do you have any advice to give a young man like me in his 30s?
Yeah, so, if you just think it's marriage will just give you a guarantee, like security, it doesn't. It's almost like it's not the goal, it's the start.
It's the start of the marathon.
Think it's a goal, but it's a start. And then usually your partner thinks very differently. So you try to appreciate the difference instead of blaming your partner for the difference. And if you can really appreciate the difference of thinking and just coming up with this idea, 100 by 100 is 10,000. Wow. But if you just 100 plus 100 is 200. A lot of couples after 5 years into marriage is 100 minus 100 is 0. So I think you start just multiplying your partner, and then you can have a beautiful life.
Got it. All right. Thanks for the tip. What is something you would do even if you know you'll fail at it?
Sorry, say again?
What is something you would do even if you know you'll fail at it? It's actually a question I got from Seth Godin. I'm not sure if you know the author. What is something you would do even if you know you'll fail at it?
You fail?
Yeah, you'll fail at it.
I think writing another book.
Wow, because you love it so much. You just love
Yeah,
writing.
I don't really care if it's not going to sell. If it's good for me, I will do it.
Got it. What's the best advice have you ever received?
I think the best advice is when you're afraid, just jump.
What's the worst advice have you ever received?
If you don't want to be hurt, stay safe. Play safe.
Wow. Okay. I do know that you talk a lot about mentorship as well, right? How do people find their mentors?
I think there are people that you really admire. So just find who they are. Are they chefs? Are they professors? Are they entrepreneurs? Are they housewives? Are they teachers? So if you just can identify whoever you admire most, I think that's your mentor. And then you can have multiple mentors, not only one. But in your field, like if you're a chef, you should have a chef mentor. But at the same time, you could have an entrepreneur mentor. So by having multiple mentors, you have multiple visions. So that's how I have my mentors, and that's how I'm learning from them.
Got it. In 1 year's time, what tangible events will need to happen to your life right now to make it the best year ever?
So I think I'm going to keep traveling, and I think I'll just enjoy meeting people, and I will do more of what I do. And I think along the way, I'll write another book.
All right. Last two questions.
Yes.
There's this famous Twitter internet entrepreneur I really admire, Naval Ravikant, right? They say that he says that desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. Desire is a contract that you make with yourself until you get what you want, right? For a person like you who has achieved so much, I'm just curious to know what other desires do you still have left?
You know, I sincerely hope that all the people in the world achieve financial independence, both financially and also emotionally, sometime in their life. Because at the rate of it's going, not everybody will enjoy the financial abundance. So hopefully people will be free from money, both financially and emotionally. And with that, financial peace of mind, they will look at life in a totally different way. They can focus on what they want truly in their life. And I hope, I can help people, not everybody, but at least I think I can help hundreds of thousands of people. So I just help one by one by just getting the interviews like this. So whoever feels that, okay, I think I want to have financial independence, I feel this interview is worth it. So I really appreciate you for taking the time for me.
Got it. No worries. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here. And with that, thanks so much, Mr. Ken Honda, for coming to here. Thanks so much, Chloe, for making this happen. If there's any last messages, where can people find you and what should they look out for from you?
So you can find all the information at kenhonda.com, KENHONDA as in a car, kenhonda.com. We have a lot of English information.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey friends, if you listen to this podcast, be sure to watch the next one here with Ken Honda. It was actually a podcast that Chloe had with Ken Honda, and I think that because Chloe speaks Japanese, right, she's able to really go into more details in terms of Ken's contribution, in terms of making an impact, in terms of helping shape people's perspective about money. So I really recommend you to check this video out that Chloe had with Ken, and I'll see you in the next one.